one of the reasons that I really wanted to interview you for my thesis is that with the amount of conflicting stories on the net, it was just impossible for me to pinpoint any of the answers to my questions.
Yeah, there's a CBC website, and then I guess you can click on Mr. Dressup on that and get some information. But I know on one apparently this it's sort of a chat thing, different people saying, I saw the show here, or, I did this and so forth. And one said that Judith Lawrence was dead and that the puppets were buried with her.
I read the same thing. Another one said that you and Judith were married, and that due to a divorce, that was part of the split. And
it's really hilarious.
Yeah, it's
some of the things that. Well, there was a rumor going around the country at one point that I was dead, and it started. I think it even Newfoundland or Nova Scotia, went right across the country and then back again. And it kept getting better and better. First it was just that I was dead, and then it was that I had died of AIDS, and then I'd committed suicide because I had AIDS. And shortly after that, we were actually going to tour Nova Scotia, and people, when it was advertised, people were calling in Halifax saying, "How can you advertise a Mr. Dressup show when he's dead?" And they'd say, "No, he's not dead. He's coming here next week." And they'd say, "Well, I know he's dead." And they'd say, "Well, how do you know?" "Well, somebody told me." It's part of the game.
Wow. That's got to be something to find out from other sources that you're dead.
Yeah, it was highly exaggerated, as Mark Twain said.
You're listening to Frank Talks, Pleasures and Lifestyles, and I'm Frank because I have to be. In that very last interview segment that you heard, Ernie Coombs talks about reports of his death that he received while he was still fully alive. The irony, of course, is that 4 weeks after he did this interview with me, he actually did pass away, making this his last official recorded interview. I would like to dedicate this episode of Frank Talks to Ernie Coombs, and dedicate this episode to the legacy of Mr. Dressup. Thank you, Ernie.
Reading from A Good Book. Hi, I'm Stephen, and welcome to Frank Talks, a reading from. Today's reading comes from CBC News website dated Tuesday 18, September 2001. Excerpts from published news. Mr. Dressup's Ernie Coombs dies after stroke. Ernie Coombs, who played the much-loved television character Mr. Dressup, has died in Toronto after suffering a stroke the week of September 11, 2001, along with TV pals Casey and Finnegan. The kindly Mr. Dressup was a staple of morning television, entertaining generations of Canadian children with simple crafts, sing-alongs, and trips to the Tickle Trunk for costumes. Harkening back to a time before video games and expensive toys, Mr. Dressup encouraged children to use their imagination. Coombs first started the character in 1964 after moving to Canada from his native United States, along with fellow kids show personality Fred Rogers. Coombs retired as Mr. Dressup in February 1996, but continued to keep up a hectic schedule of personal appearances in character. In 1994, Coombs was awarded a Gemini for his lifetime contribution to Canadian television. Among countless other awards, the show won an ACTRA for Best Program. He became a Canadian citizen in 1994, years after he was considered a Canadian cultural icon. Coombs, who lived in Pickering, Ontario, is survived by 3 grown children, Christopher, Kenneth, and Catherine Minow. His wife Marlene died in a traffic accident 9 years ago. Ernie Coombs was 73. The show still airs across Canada in reruns. And that was an excerpt of CBC News website dated Tuesday, September the 18th, 2001. For Frank Talks, a reading from I'm Stephen.
This is a song dedicated to the wonderful Mr. Dressup.
Oh, Mr. Dressup.